Welcome to the 1000 Nights and 1 Night. Now, when it was the 702nd night, she pursued, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when the old woman had taken the property of the young merchant and the damsel, and wended her ways, having locked the door upon them, she deposited her spoils with the druggist of her acquaintance, and returned to the dyer, whom she found sitting awaiting her. Quoth he, Inshallah, the house pleaseth thee? And quoth she, There is a blessing in it, and I go now to fetch porters to carry hither our goods and furniture. But my children would have me bring them a panade with bread and meat. So do thou take this dinar, and buy the dish, and go and eat the morning meal with them. Asked the dyer, Who shall guard the dairy meanwhile, and the people's goods that be therein? And the old woman answered, Thy lad. So be it, rejoined he, and taking a dish and cover, went out to do her bidding. So far concerning the dyer, who will again be mentioned in the tale, but as regards the old woman, she fetched the clothes and jewels, and she left the druggist, and going back to the dairy, said to the lad, Run after thy master, and I will not stir hence till you both return. To hear is to obey, answered he, and went away, while she began to collect all the customers' goods. Presently there came up an ass-driver, a scavenger, who had been at work for a week, and who was on a hash-eatery to boot. And she called him, saying, Hither, O donkey boy. So he came to her, and she asked, Knowest thou my son the dyer? Whereto he answered, Yes, I know him. Then she said, The poor fellow is insolvent, and loaded with debts, and as often as he is put in prison, I set him free. Now we wish to see him declared bankrupt, and I am going to return the goods to their owners. So do thou lend me thine ass to carry the load, and receive this dinar to its hire. When I am gone, take the handsaw, and empty out the vats and jars, and break them, so that if any officer from the Qazi's office court come, he may find nothing in the diary. Quoth he, I owe the Hajij a kindness, and will do something for Allah's love. So she laid the things on the ass, and the protector protecting her, made for her own house, so that she arrived there in safety, and went in to her daughter Zaynab, who said to her, O my mother, my heart hath been with thee. What hast thou done by the way of roguery? And Dalilah replied, I have played off 4 tricks on 4 whites, the wife of the sergeant usher, a young merchant, a dyer with ass, and an ass-driver. I have brought thee all their spoils on the donkey boy's beast. Cried Zaynab, O my mother, thou wilt never more be able to go out about this town. The fear of the sergeant usher, whose wife raiment and jewelry thou hast taken, and the merchant whom thou hast stripped naked, and the dyer whose customers' goods thou hast stolen, and the owner of the ass. Rejoined the old woman, Pooh, my girl, I reck not of them, save the donkey boy who knoweth me. Meanwhile, the dyer bought the meat panade, and set out for the house, followed by his servant with the food on his head. On this way thither he passed a shop, where he found the donkey boy breaking the vats and jars, and saw that there was nothing left, no liquor left in them, and that the dairy was in ruins. So he said to him, Hold thy hand, O ass-driver. And the donkey boy desisted, and cried, Praise be Allah for thy safety, O master. Verily my heart was with thee. Why so? Well, thou art become bankrupt, and they have filed a docket of thine insolvency. Who told thee this? Thy mother told me, and bade me break the jars and empty the vats, that the Qazi officers might find nothing in the shop, if they should come. Allah confound the far one, cried the dyer. My mother died long ago. And he beat his breast, exclaiming, Alas, for the loss of my goods, and those of the folk. The donkey boy also wept, and said, Alas, for the loss of my ass. And he said to the dyer, Give me back my beast, which thy mother stole from me. The dyer laid hold of him by the throat, and fell to buffeting him, saying, Bring me the old woman. Whilst the other buffeted him in return, saying, Give me back my beast. So they beat, and they cursed at each other, till the folk collected around them. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 703rd night, she resumed, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the dyer caught hold of the donkey boy, and the donkey boy caught hold of the dyer, and they beat and they cursed each other till the folk collected round them, and one of them asked, What is the matter, O Master Mohammed? The ass-driver answered, I will tell thee the tale, and related to them his story, saying, I deemed I was doing the dyer a good turn, but when he saw me, he beat his breast and said, My mother is dead. And now I, for one, require my ass of him, it being he who hath put this trick on me, that he might make me lose my beast. Then said the folk to the dyer, O Master Mohammed, dost thou know this matron, that thou didst entrust her with the dyery and all therein? And he replied, I know her not, but she took lodgings with me today, she and her son and daughter. Quoth one, In my judgment, the dyer is bound to indemnify the ass-driver. Quoth another, Why so? Because, replied the first, he trusted not the old woman, nor gave her his ass, save only because he saw that the dyer had entrusted her with the dyery and its contents. And a third said, O master, since thou hast lodged her with thee, it behoveth thee to get the man back his ass. Then they made for the house, and the tale will come round to them again. Meanwhile, the young merchant remained awaiting the old woman's coming with her daughter, but she came not, nor did her daughter, whilst the young lady in the like manner sat expecting her return with leave from her son. The God-attended one, the Sheikh's deputy, to go into the holy presence. So weary of waiting, she rose to visit the Sheikh by herself, and went down into the saloon, where she found the young merchant, who said to her, Come hither, where's thy mother, who brought me to marry thee? She replied, My mother is dead. Art thou the old woman's son, the ecstatic, the deputy of the Sheikh Abu Ahamlat? Quoth he, That swindling old tot is no mother of mine. She hath cheated me, she has taken my clothes, and 1,000 dinars. Quoth Katan, And me also hath she swindled, for she brought me to see the Sheikh Abu al-Hamat, and in lieu of so doing, she hath stripped me. Thereupon he, I look to thee to make good my clothes and my 1,000 dinars. And she, I look to thee to make good my clothes and my jewelry. And behold, at this moment, in came the dyer, and seeing them both stripped of their raiment, said to them, Tell me, where is your mother? So the young lady related all that had befallen her, and the young merchant related all that had betided him, and the master dyer exclaimed, Alas, for the loss of my goods and those of my folk! Alas for my ass, said the ass-driver. Give me, O dyer, my ass. Then said the dyer, This old woman is a sharper. Come forth, that I may lock the door. Quoth the young merchant, 'Twere a disgrace to thee that we should enter thy house dressed, and go forth from it undressed. So the dyer clad him and the damsel, and sent her back to her house, where we shall find her after the return of her husband. Then he shut the dyery, and said to the young merchant, Come, let us go and search for the old woman, and hand her over to the wali, the chief of police. So they and the ass-man repaired to the house of the master of police, and made their complaint to him. Quoth he, O folk, what wants she? And then they told him, and he rejoined, How many old women are there not in this town? Go ye seek her, lay hands on her, and bring her to me, and I will torture her for you, and make her confess. So they sought for her all around the town. An account of them will presently be given. As for the old Dalilah the wily, she said, I have a mind to play off another trick to her daughter, who answered, O my mother, I fear for thee. But the Bedlam cried, I am like the bean husk, which fall, proof against fire and water. So she rose, and donning a slave girl's dress, of such as serve people of condition, went out to look for someone to defraud. Presently she came to a by-street, spread with carpets and lighted with hanging lamps, and heard a noise of singing women and drumming of tambourines. Here she saw a handmaid bearing on her shoulder a boy, clad in trousers laced with silver, and a little alba cloak of velvet with a pearl-embroidered tarbouche cap on his head, and about his neck a collar of gold set with jewels. Now the house belonged to the provost of the merchants of Baghdad, and the boy was his son. He had a virgin daughter to boot, who was promised in marriage, and it was her betrothal that they were celebrating that day. There was with her mother a company of noble dames and singing women, and whenever she went upstairs or down, the boy clung to her. So she called the slave girl and said to her, "Take thy young master and play with him till the company break up." Seeing this, Dalilah asked the handmaid, "What festivities are these in your mistress's house?" And she answered, "She celebrates her daughter's betrothal this day, and she hath singing women with her." Quoth the old woman to herself, "Oh, Dalilah, this thing is to spirit away the boy from the maid." And Scheherazade perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 704th night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when the old trot said to herself, 'Oh, Dalilah, the thing to do is to spirit away the boy from the maid,' she began crying out, 'Oh, disgrace! Oh, ill luck!' Then pulling out a brass token, resembling a dinar, she said to the maid, who was a simpleton, 'Take this ducat, and go unto thy mistress, and say to her, all Cahere rejoices with thee, and is beholden to thee for thy favors. And on the day of assembly, she and her daughters will visit thee, and hansel the tiring women of the usual gifts.' Said the girl, 'O my mother, my young master here catcheth hold of his mamma whenever he seeth her.' And she replied, 'Give him to me, whilst thou goest in and comest back.' So she gave her the child, and taking the token went in, whereupon Dalilah made off with the boy down to the alley, and where she stripped him of his clothes and his jewels, saying to herself, 'Oh, Dalilah, 'twould indeed be the finest of tricks, even as thou hast cheated the maid and taken the boy from her. So now to carry on the game, and pawn him for 1,000 dinars. So she repaired to the jewel bazaar, where she saw a Jew goldsmith seated with a cage full of jewelry before him, and said to herself, 'Twould be a rare trick to choose this Jew fellow and get 1,000 gold pieces worth of jewelry from him, and leave the boy in pledge for it.' Presently the Jew looked at them, and seeing the boy with the old woman, knew him to be the son of the provost of the merchants. Now the Israelite was a man of great wealth, but would envy his neighbor if he sold and himself did not sell. So espying Dalilah, he said to her, 'What seekest thou, O my mistress?' She asked, 'Art thou master Azira the Jew?' having first inquired his name of others. And he answered, 'Yes.' Quoth she, 'This boy's sister, daughter of Shahbandar of the merchants, is promised bride, and today they celebrate her betrothal, and she hath need of jewelry. So give me 2 pair of gold ankle rings, a brace of gold bracelets, a pearl eardrops with a girdle, and a poignard and a seal ring.' He brought them out, and she took of them 1,000 dinars worth of jewelry, saying, 'I will take these ornaments on approval, and whatso pleaseth them they will keep, and I will bring thee the price, and leave this boy with thee till then.' He said, 'Be it as thou wilt.' So she took the jewelry, and made off to her house with all speed. She told how she had taken and stripped the Shabarnot's boy, and Zaynab said, 'Thou wilt never be able to walk abroad again in the town.' Meanwhile, the maid went in to her mistress, and said to her, 'O my lady al-Kahar saluteth thee, and rejoiceth with thee. On an assembly day she will come, she and her daughters, and give the customary presents.' Quoth her mistress, 'Where is thy young master?' Quoth the slave girl, 'I left him with her, lest he cling to thee, and she gave me this as largesse for the singing women.' So the lady said to the chief of the singers, 'Take thy money.' And she took it, and found it a brass counter. Whereupon the lady cried to the maid, 'Get thee down, O whore, and look to thy young master.' Accordingly, she went down, and finding neither boy nor old woman, shrieked aloud, and fell on her face. Their joy was changed into annoy, and behold, the provost came in, and when his wife told him all that had befallen, he went out in quest of the child, whilst the other merchants also fared forth, and each sought his own road. Presently the Shahbandar, who had looked everywhere, spied his son sitting naked in the Jew's shop, and said to the owner, "This is my son." "'Tis well," answered the Jew. So he took him up without asking for his clothes, of the excess of joy of finding him. But the Jew laid hold of him, saying, "Allah succor the Caliph against thee?" The provost asked, "What aileth thee, O Jew?" And he answered, "Verily, the old woman took of me 1,000 dinars worth of jewelry for thy daughter, and left this lad in pledge for the price. And I had not trusted her, but that she offered to leave the child, whom I knew to be thy son." Said the provost, "My daughter needeth no jewelry. Give me the boy's clothes." Thereupon the Jew shrieked out, "Come to my aid, O Moslems!" But at that moment up came the dyer and the ass man and the young merchant, who were going about seeking the old woman, and inquired the case of their jangle. So they told them the case, and they said, "This old woman is a cheat, who hath cheated us before you." Then they recounted them how she had dealt with them, and the provost said, "Since I have found my son, be his clothes his ransom. If I come upon this old woman, I will require them of her." And he carried the child home to his mother, who rejoiced in his safety. Then the Jew said to the others, "Whither go ye?" And they answered, "We go to look for her." Quoth the Jew, "Take me with you." Presently adding, "Is there any one of you who knoweth her?" The donkey boy cried, "I know her." And the Jew said, "If we all go forth together, we shall never catch her, for she will flee from us. Let us each take a different road, and be our rendezvous at the shop of Hajij Masood, the Moorish barber." They agreed to this and set off, each in a different direction. Presently Dalilah sallied forth again to play her tricks, and the ass driver met her and knew her. So he caught hold of her and said to her, "Woe to thee! Hast thou been long at this trade?" And she asked, "What aileth thee?" And he answered, "Give me back my ass." Quoth she, "Cover what Allah covereth, O my son. Dost thou seek thine ass and the people's things?" Quoth he, "I want my ass, that's all." And quoth she, "I saw that thou wast poor, so I deposited thine ass for thee with the Moorish barber. Stand off while I speak him fair, that he may give thee the beast." So she went up to the Mugby and kissed his hands and shed tears. He asked her what ailed her, and she said, "O my son, look at my boy who standeth yonder. He was ill, and exposed himself to the air, which injured his intellect. He used to buy asses, and now, if he stand, he say nothing but, 'My ass.' If he sit, he crieth, 'My ass.' And if he walk, he crieth, 'My ass.' Now, I have been told by a certain physician that his mind is disordered, and that nothing will cure him but drawing 2 of his grinders and cauterizing them twice on either temple. So do thou take this dinar and call him to thee, saying, 'Thine ass is with me.'" Said the barber, "May I fast for a year, if I do not give him his ass in his fist." Now, he had with him 2 journeymen, so he said to one of them, "Go heat the irons." Then the old woman went his way, and the barber called to the donkey boy, saying, "Thy ass is with me, good fellow. Come in, and take him, and as thou livest, I will give him in thy palm." So he took to him, and the barber carried him into a dark room, where he knocked him down, and the juryman bound him hand and foot. Then the Maghrebi arose and pulled out 2 of his grinders, and fired him on either temple, after which he let him go. And he rose and said, "O Moor, why hast thou used me with this usage?" Quoth the barber, "Thy mother told me that thou hast taken cold whilst ill, and hast lost thy reason, so that whether sitting or standing or walking thou wouldst say nothing but 'my ass.' So here is thine ass in thy fist." Said the other, "Allah requite thee for pulling out my teeth." Then the barber told him all that the old woman had related, and he exclaimed, "Allah torment her!" And the twain left the shop and went out disputing. When the barber returned, he found his booth empty, for whilst he was absent, the old woman had taken all that was therein, and made off with it, with her daughter, whom she acquainted with all that had befallen, and all that she had done. The barber, seeing his place plundered, caught hold of the donkey boy, and said to him, "Bring me thy mother." But he answered, saying, She is not my mother. She is a sharper who hath cozened many people and stolen my ass. And lo, at this moment, up came the dyer and the Jew to the young merchant, and seeing the Moorish barber holding on to the ass driver, who was on fired on both temples, they said to him, What hath befallen thee, O donkey boy? So he told them all that had betided him, and the barber did the like, and the others in turn related to the Moor the tricks the old woman had played on them. Then he shut up his shop, and went with them to the office of the police master, to whom they said, We look to thee for our case and our coin. Quoth Wali, And how many old women are there not in Baghdad? Say me, doth any of you know her? Quoth the ass man, I do. So give me 10 of thine officers. He gave him 60 archers, and they all 5 went out, followed by the sergeants, and patrolled the city till they met the old woman, when they laid hands on her, and carrying her to the house of the chief of police, stood waiting under his office window till he should come forth. Presently the warders fell asleep for excess of watching with their chief, and the old Dalilah, she feigned to follow their example, till the ass man and his fellows fell asleep as well, when she stole away from them, and going to the Wali's harem, kissed the hand of the mistress of the house, and asked her, Where is the chief of police? The lady answered, He's asleep. What wast thou with him? Quoth Dalilah, My husband is a merchant of chattels, and gave me 5 Mamelukes to sell, whilst he was on journey. The master of the police met me, and bought them of me for 1,000 dinars, and 200 for myself, saying, Bring them to my house. So I have brought them. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 705th night, she continued, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the old woman entering the harem of the police master said to his wife, Verily the Wali bought of me 5 slaves for 1,000 ducats, and 200 for myself, saying, Bring them to my quarters. So I have brought them. Hearing the old woman's story, she believed it, and asked her, Where are the slaves? Dalilah replied, O my lady, they are asleep under the palace window. Whereupon the dame looked out, and seeing the Moorish barber clad in a Mameluke habit, and the young merchant as he were a drunken Mameluke, and the Jew and the dyer and the ass driver as they were shaven Mamelukes, said in herself, Each of these white slaves is worth more than 1,000 dinars. So she opened her chest, and gave the old woman the 1,000 ducats, saying, Fare thee forth now, and come back anon, when my husband waketh, and I will get thee the other 200 dinars from him. Answered the old woman, O my lady, 100 of them are thine under the sherbet gugglet, whereof thou drinkest, and the other 100 do thou keep for me against I come back. Presently adding, Now let me out your private door. So she let her out, and the protector protected her, and she made her way home to her daughter, to whom she related how she had gotten 1,000 gold pieces, and sold her 5 pursuers into slavery, ending with, O my daughter, the one who troubleth me most is the ass driver, for he knoweth me. Said Zaynab, O my mother, abide quiet a while, and let what thou hast done suffice thee, for the crock shall not always escape the shock. When the chief of police awoke, his wife said to him, I give thee joy of the 5 slaves that thou hast bought of the old woman. Asked he, What slaves? And she answered, Why dost thou deny it to me? Allah willing, they shall become like thee, people of condition. Quoth he, As my head liveth, I have bought no slaves. Who saith this? Quoth she, The old woman, the brokeress from whom thou boughtest them, and thou didst promise her 1,000 dinars for them, and 200 for herself. Cried he, Didst thou give her the money? And she replied, Yes, for I saw the slaves with mine own eyes, and on each is a suit of clothes worth 1,000 dinars, so I sent out to bid the sergeants have an eye to them. The Wali went out, and seeing the 5 plaintiffs, said to the officers, Where are the 5 slaves we bought for 1,000 dinars of the old woman? Said they, There are no slaves here, only these 5 men who found the old woman and seized her and brought her hither. We fell asleep whilst waiting for thee, and she stole away and entered the harem. Presently out came a maid and asked us, Are the 5 with you at whom the old woman came? And we answered, Yes. Cried the master of police, By Allah, this is the biggest of swindles. And the 5 men said, We look to thee for our goods. Quoth the Wali, The old woman, your mistress, sold you to me for 1,000 gold pieces. Quoth they, That were not allowed of Allah. We are free-born men, and may not be sold, and we appeal from thee to the Caliph. Rejoined the master of police, None showed her the way to the house save you, and I will sell you to the galleys for 200 dinars apiece. Just then, behold, up came the emir Hassan Shar al-Tariq, who on his return from his journey had found his wife stripped of her clothes and jewelry, and heard from her all that had passed. Whereupon quoth he, The master of police shall answer me this. And repairing to him, he said, Dost thou suffer old woman to go around about the town and cozen folk of their goods? This is thy duty, and I look to thee for my wife's property. Then said he to the 5 men, What is the case with you? Then they each told them his story, and said, Ye are wronged men. And turning to the master of police, asked him, Why dost thou arrest them? Answered he, None brought the old wretch to my house, save these 5. So she took 1,000 dinars of my money, and sold them to my women. Whereupon the 5 cried, O Emir Hassan, be thou our advocate in this case. Then said the master of the police to the emir, Thy wife's goods are at my charge, and I will be surety for the old woman. But which of you knoweth her? They cried, We all know her. Send 10 operators with us, and we will take her. So he gave them 10 men, and the ass driver said to them, Follow me, for I should know her with blue eyes. Then they fared forth, and lo, they met old Dalilah coming out of a by-street. So they at once laid hands on her, and brought her to the office of the Wali, who asked her, Where are the people's goods? But she answered, saying, I have neither gotten them nor seen them. Then they cried to the gaoler, Take her with thee, and clap her in gold till the morning. But he replied, I will not take her, nor will I imprison her, lest she play a trick on me, and I be answerable for her. So the master of police mounted, and rode out with Dalilah and the rest of the bank of the Tigris, where he bade the lamplighter crucify her by her hair. He drew her up by the pulley, and bound her on the cross, after which the master of police set 10 men to guard her, and went home. Presently the night fell down, and sleep overcame the watchman. Now a certain Badawi had heard one man say to the friend, Praise be to Allah for thy safe return. Where hast thou been all this time? Replied the other, In Baghdad, where I broke my fast on honey fritters. Quoth the Badawi to himself, Needs I must go to Baghdad, and eat honey fritters therein. For in all this life he had never entered Baghdad, nor seen fritters of this sort. So he mounted his stallion, and rode on towards Baghdad, saying in his mind, 'Tis a fine thing to eat honey fritters. On the honor of an Arab, I will break my fast with honey fritters, and naught else. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. And so do I cease my telling of this tale, until it be morrow.